Okay, sweetheart.
Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ema. Hey, Ema.
Hey, my little sweet. Now you know I don't like those wife beater T-shirts that you're wearing.
That's fantastic, Ema.
I
That's
never liked a man in wife beater T-shirts.
I know. I do it out of convenience because that's what I bought, whenever I was shopping for T-shirts. They were on sale. You can't judge a man who, shops well.
I remember one time I came to my piano teacher's house to take a lesson, and it was the summertime, and so he answers the door in shorts and a wife beater T-shirt. And I yelled at him, just go. I said, go back and get dressed. He says, I am dressed.
Oh gosh. Yeah, so we were talking earlier. We were just reminiscing a little bit more about the Beatles and their first movie, A Hard Day's Night. And in one scene, Ringo Starr gives a Hitler salute and clicks his heels to an actor portraying a German soldier. And it's just so funny because you wouldn't see that in today's movies or TV shows. It's weird because you think it happened more recently. You wouldn't say a 9/11 joke in 2001, but here in the 1960s, it's they were devastated in World War II. I think, what was it? Let's do the math here. 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember when I was a kid, for a joke, this is horrible. If we had a teacher or a principal that was overly strict, for a joke, we used to give Hitler salutes behind their back. So we had this one Hebrew school principal who was from Germany.
Oh, Ema, I can't hear you. Ema.
He was very, very strict, almost. I mean, he was almost I hate to say, he was like the what can I say, the quintessential German soldier, whatever,
Very strict, very sharp.
Yes,
very
right.
So
the kids used to give Hitler salutes behind his back for a joke, and I told my mother about it. My mother said, "Oh no!" She goes, "Please don't do that." She said he was from a family of Holocaust survivors.
Oh,
says, please don't do that. Please don't do
God.
that. That was the one. I told you about, the music program in Hebrew school.
Oh, wait a second. I'm trying to remember this one.
The music. Your father and I laugh about it because every now and then I would get a job to do music programs at different Jewish schools and everything. Yeah. And I tried to make it fun. I would, play the piano and sing, get everybody singing and clapping, and we, for our music program, it was right before Hanukkah and right before Purim, we would literally be marched into the sanctuary, and he would get up on the bima, smoking with his cigar.
Oh wow, you're right. They would smoke back
then.
Yeah,
you bet. Yeah, they smoked everywhere, and he would pass out these old yellowy song sheets, with Hanukkah songs or Purim songs. It was Purim time. He would get up on the bima, take his cigar out of his mouth, pick up the song sheet, and go, "Okay, song number 1." And we would start singing, and he would go, "Stop!" And he would go, "Sing what you mean. Ready.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, sing."
Jeez, it's so funny because it's I was reading an article recently that was saying, I think it's 80% men, fathers nowadays spend 80% more time with their kids now than they did in the 80s. 30% time. It was a large percentage. And it's so funny because I think children are having more involved parents with more care and more patience.
Yes.
It's just
absolutely.
You wouldn't catch somebody. I mean, maybe me growing up, in the 90s, as a kid, there was some stringency here and there. There was a few teachers were very strict, but most of the time the teachers were pretty nice, pretty chill and caring, And it's just it's wild that like that we're slowly shifting to a more calm environment. But my question is, if we're going to have our kids in a very soft, calm, relaxing environment, what are they going to do within a situation that requires a more stern approach? You know, like what? Like
I figure it out on their own.
I I guess they'll just have to just suffer, and
Uh-huh.
then but then like they won't, because the whole point is raising kids is to prepare them for the adult world, right?
That too, yes, and you want to impart, values with them as Orthodox Jews. Of course, we want to impart
Or
Torah
Jewish values,
values
yeah.
to them, and which also includes humanitarian values.
Yes.
But that's what. So I remember the Rebbe one time talking about some parent that came to him concerned that his son had become a Baal Tshuva, and he was kind of not, he wasn't so happy about it, that the son decided to switch to a Jewish school and become frum. And so the Rebbe asked the parent what was, the problem. The parent said, "I want him to be a mensch."
That's funny.
And the Rebbe mentioned the story of Fabringen, and he said, and the Rebbe said, listen, he says, Torah is, Torah does emphasize being a mensch. And then that's when the Rebbe spoke to, the whole audience of Hasidim, saying that he was concerned
Mhm.
about the fact that you have a lot of from people, especially men, that learn a lot, but he says they don't have derech eretz,
Yeah.
and he was concerned about this, about like pushing, shoving, bumping into someone, not saying excuse me, just derech, just everyday derech eretz behavior. And he says this really reflects on you as a Torah Jew.
It causes such a chil Hashem, and what's sad is that it hasn't changed. Again, I was reading another article talking about the issue of polio vaccines, and they're like,
Oh
in
my
this
gosh.
county, 60% of the community is not vaccinated, and it's causing a whole issue. And I'm like, motherfucker! It turns out that whole county is like, I think somewhere in like Monroe or KJ. It's like, I'm like,
know.
really, you're
I
causing such a chil Hashem
know.
by doing what you're doing.
I've met people who are non-vaxxers, and sad to say, a lot of them became non-vaxxers because of the what were proved to be the erroneous correlation at the time. Somebody came out with this correlation between autism and
It was one
vaccinations,
article,
and it turned out not to be true, it's not to be false science.
It was all falsified,
Yes.
And what's frustrating is there's people in my shul where like they also are anti-vax. I'm like, you're idiots. You are pure raw idiots. And it's like I try to have a somewhat conversation with them just to like get a feel of what's going on. And the frustrating thing, and everyone in the entire, I think, United States or in the entire world right now feels this way. You can't have a conversation with someone on the opposite side of your train of thought, because for some reason everyone is just stuck in their ways. You can't like discuss things or come to a middle ground. It's all or nothing. I think society is going to give at some point. It's going to eventually going to get to a point where it's like they're done with this, where we have to have some level of just back and forth conversation. We have to have some kind of way of communicating with each other, because this is getting ridiculous. It's getting to a point where it's like it's just yelling and screaming. It's like, I'm right, no, I'm right, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're a Nazi, no, you're a Nazi. It's like just stop.
I was thinking about that the other day, like as far as handling, dealing with people who don't share your point of view and having an exchange of ideas. And I was thinking about that the other day, that very thing. And if you stop to think about it, you should not feel threatened just because someone has an idea, is expressing an idea that's different from your point of view. Why do you feel threatened? The only reason someone should feel threatened is if their own belief in their idea is shaky, and they're afraid, and they're like subconsciously afraid, they're, in other words, if they're like, their sense of being, their sense of who they are as a human being, it's almost like a religion, is so tied up in that idea that any challenge to that idea is like a challenge to their very essence as a human being. And that's when they get, like on the defensive and name calling, and they don't, want. It's a lot of times, a lot of the conservative talk show hosts have noticed this about your far left people, that they do not want an exchange of ideas, that a lot of the far left people will resort to, to name calling and saying they're racist, or even, resort to violence when they're confronted with an idea that differs from their idea.
But look at the far right as well, has that same issue. The far right has the same issue where they believe in these conspiracy theories, and you try to talk to them about these conspiracy theories, saying, "Hey, you're being an idiot." Like Alex Jones just got he lost a lawsuit that he has to pay $4 million to the Sandy Hook victims.
Oh, well, that was different.
Because he's a freaking moron. He was a freaking moron.
I mean,
but that's my point, Ema.
But what he did was not just an exchange of ideas, like a benign.
Ema, that's my point. I'm trying to say. That's my point I was trying to make.
Yeah, right.
That like you have these people that are just ridiculous, saying random things, slandering, doing whatever, and are like determined, thinking that they're right, or portraying that they're right, or whatever they're doing. I don't know what it is. But it's just like they have this energy and this focus where they're like, A is B and B is C, whatever.
Yeah, but there's a difference between an exchange of, say, ideas and actually calling out a specific, how can I say, a specific incident or a specific group of people and actually slandering.
No, but that's one of many stupid things he's said and done.
Okay, well, he won't be so stupid anymore. He'll be a little poorer now for being so stupid.
I don't know. He'll claim, he will probably claim that it's a conspiracy against him, and that they were just trying to shut him out and keep him quiet. And it's something about the deep state, And the problem is those kind of people also have a high tendency of blaming Jews for stupid things.
Is he anti-Semitic? I'm not familiar with.
It's not about him being anti-Semitic. It's about him stoking the fire for idiots that want to believe in anti-Semitism.
What has he said specifically?
So they start off with ideas like, it's, for example, I honestly, I stay away from him. I don't look at his stuff. I don't read any of his things. I'm giving an example.
I don't even know who he is. I've never heard of him.
Good, fine. I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's just I'm trying to bring a point across. You have these 9/11 deniers who have this weird theory that Israel was behind, Mossad was behind the attacks of 9/11.
Oh gosh.
And then you have all these things happening, one thing or another, and they at the end of every single conspiracy theory, thought process, YouTube video, whatever, it always boils down to the Jews or the Mossad or the Israeli governments behind it. And it is so nauseating and it's so painful. It gets frustrating where it's like, it's just recently, I think it happened. I think it actually happened today. So there's a Republican person who's running for governor in Maryland. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. Dan Cox. He's a Republican who represents the 4th district in the Maryland House of Delegates. He's the problem is that there was a guy or a girl, whoever, I don't know, went to a household, spray painted Cox, and then put a swastika on the mailing box. Now, there's issues of anti-Semitism right now happening in Pennsylvania.
What happened?
So
I know I've heard rumors that said that anti-Semitism was definitely on the rise.
Yeah, so the thing is that there's a the, I'm trying to remember all the details, but there's a Republican candidate for governor in Pennsylvania who says that a Republican Party is not for anyone who is non-Christian, and focuses on saying Jews are not wanted in the Republican Party. And he's a strong candidate for the as a Republican governor of Pennsylvania.
That is really sad. But I hate to say what the left too. I mean, the
Look, we're screwed on both ends.
That's coming from the left also. That's coming from the left.
The left, you have
It
plenty of
makes me feel
things.
very upset when I hear about these Republican candidates that say such things. Because first of all, I'm a Republican, and I became a Republican. I switched parties because I felt that the Republicans were more for individual freedoms than obviously, the left wingers are. Left wingers tend to be more socialistic / communistic, more high high tax social programs type things, high tax and social programs that don't work type thing. And I thought the Republicans basically reflected my values more. So it really gets me upset when I hear about a Republican who says such anti-Semitic things. They think this guy's got a really good chance. Did he get the Republican nomination in the primaries?
Right now he's running.
But they didn't have the primaries yet, did they?
I think the primaries happened already, if I'm not mistaken.
So was he voted in during the primaries? Is he the Republican candidate for governor then?
Hope not. I'm reading more into this right now. But basically a support. So there's a man named Doug Mastriano who's running for Republican nominee for governor. And it took him a long time to respond. But one of his big donors was basically, here it is. In defending Mr. Mastriano's ties to Gab in recent days, its founder, Andrew Torba, repeatedly made anti-Semitic remarks and said in one video that neither he nor Mr. Mastriano would give interviews to non-Christian journalists. Mr. Mastriano on Thursday did not condemn Mr. Torba. He blamed Democrats and the media for the controversy. So it goes on and on and on, explaining it more and more. I don't care to read the article. If anybody's listening, they want to look into it, they can look into it. But it's just these little things that are popping up here and there, like more and more.
Remember what time I was thinking about when I was in college that time that I was in the student union, the social hall, the student union. And some guy walked over to me. He says, "Are you Jewish?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Is it true that the Jews killed Yashki?" So I look around the room and I see all these like Catholic kids that I was friends with, like totally standing around us. And I realized, okay, these guys purposely put him up. Something's going on, this guy's looking for a debate. So I thought to myself, I am not going to get involved in any type of theological debate with this guy. So I gave him a very hard look and I said, "Yes, it's true. And if I had my way, if I'd been back there, I wouldn't have stopped with him. I would have kept going while the getting was good." And all these Catholic kids just cracked up laughing.
That's
and
funny.
His mouth flew open. He goes, "I'm being serious." I go, "Yes, so am I. And you better get out of here because right now you're starting to look real good to me."
Jeez Louise. Oh my gosh. Speaking of which, not college, but it's like, I have an interesting question. If you could make one illegal thing legal, what would it be and why?
Oh, no.
What would it be and why?
You're gonna be shocked at this one.
Sure, go right ahead.
prostitution.
Really? Why?
Because in countries where it is legal, as in anything else, they're able to regulate it. The
Mhm.
people involved have to register with the government. They have to come in for every so often. It's all, they're scheduled. They have to come in on a regular basis for total physical checkups.
Mhm.
They're actually given like cards showing that they've been for a physical checkup, that they're certified by the government. And I think it might cut down on basically if it's you know what I mean. You hear what I'm saying?
No, I
Yeah.
get it. I get it. I
And
think
I think it would also cut down on the sex trafficking,
yes.
in that not only could we get these people on sex trafficking, but we can get them on illegal prostitution. In other words, the legal people have to register. Anyone who doesn't, this is illegal, and then the police can just totally round them up like that.
Yeah, I really think, and that's why I think it was Oregon that did this, or Washington State, that they made all drugs, possession of all drugs legal or decriminalized. All
Mhm.
possession of all drugs decriminalized. Because like, why are you going after the drug addicts who use it?
Yeah.
It's the drug dealers. And more than
Yes.
that, why are you making all these substances illegal? Just regulate them and
Mhm.
handle it that way. Because when you made everything illegal, that's when all the organized crime came about.
Oh yeah, that's what's true. Prohibition proved that. Everybody knows that
Yeah.
during Prohibition, that Tom, what was his name, Thomas Naki, and that's
Yes,
when
Nucky Thompson,
Rothstein,
yeah,
Nicky Thompson,
Nicky
yeah,
Thompson,
right,
Rothstein,
Rothstein, all of them. That's when
all the good old boys
that's when the organized crime really
peaked and
took
spiked.
over.
It was the golden age.
I always felt like this one doctor was talking about it on the radio, and he said, "Look, he says, why are we criminalizing these people? This is a health issue.
Yeah.
This is a health issue." And I think one of the reasons a lot of people are afraid also to come for help is because if they come for help, they can be arrested for illegal drug use.
Exactly. And it's just it's why it's again, this is why I feel in some sense that the government should really start decriminalizing a lot of these drugs.
I feel that we need to go after violent criminals.
Yeah.
That are, we don't need to put honest, but we need to put citizens who have like a health problem. We need to put them in jail.
Just like using social workers more to handle more 911 calls instead of bringing like 3 cops with guns. Like that's where it gets a little ridiculous, where you have situations where you have people just banging on doors and someone opens up and wonders what's going on, why are these 3 people here, and then one thing leads to another and they get shot and killed. Because you have these guys that have 9 months of training, they're super pumped and trigger happy. It is, but it's.
Wait, did you hear about what happened here in Florida with this
A
woman?
lot of things happen in Florida.
No, the one where they made a mistake as to the eviction notice.
No,
Did you hear that one? Okay,
No.
I guess it wasn't on national news. I guess it was like just there in Florida.
Just local.
What happened was this woman has one of those video ringers, and she hears somebody fidgeting with the lock at her door. This is in the middle of the day. And she comes up and she goes, "Hello." She goes, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" And they said, we're here to serve the eviction notice." She says, "What eviction notice?" She goes, "I own my house." And so they said to her, and the guy was a policeman and a locksmith. And the locksmith is in the middle of like basically destroying her lock and taking it off. And then the policeman says, "What's your name?" And she said her name, and he looked at the paper and he goes, "Uh-oh." Because we have the wrong house. And so you hear the locksmith go, beep, and I like bleeped out what the locksmith said. And the locksmith said, he says, okay, well, we're going to have to replace the lock that I just broke.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she said that she said in an interview that thank God she was home at that time.
Yeah.
She said, had she not been home,
They would have taken
she
all their
would have
stuff, thrown it out.
right, she would have come to
Yeah.
our stuff thrown out on the street.
Oh my God. Now that would have been a nice lawsuit. Yeah, it's I think what that is right. Hold on. Sorry with that. You know, I think about when it comes to people doing their job and making mistakes, and it's like I do my job, and like there's moments where it's like I'm working on something, like my boss was asking me a question about some work I had to do, and some stuff that I think that the engineers worked on that we sent to the health department, and we're just getting things going. Like they're like, did the engineers contact you about this project? They mentioned the floor sinks, blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, we talked, but we discussed it. Like we went over this. Like I explained it to them, and I'm like, wait a second, is this for project 002? He's like, no, it's for 003. I'm like, oh, sorry, no. Sorry, we didn't discuss that. Like I had to like go back, and now like it always gets to me because it's like I have to have everything perfect. Everything has to be exact. Everything has to have it in order. And when I make mistakes, I just hate myself. I just really hate myself because I'm like, ugh, I gotta be more
But the
professional.
problem is that human beings, we're not God. We're not God. We don't know everything.
So says you.
Human beings make mistakes. Human beings make honest mistakes. Where you draw the line is criminal activity, someone intending to do harm. But if you're a good, honest person and you're not out to harm, it's impossible to go through life not making mistakes, period. Of course, we're human beings. We make mistakes. Like, I'll tell you something, I got a call one time from one of the principals of the school.
Yeah.
And he says to me, your son is failing every single subject. And I said to him, wait a minute, I said, we just got his report card this week. It was all A's and B's. And he says, wait a minute. He goes, whoops, wrong parent.
Oh, that's funny.
I almost had a heart attack. I mean, look, we get A's and B's on this report. What are you talking about?
I have another question for you that I don't think I ever asked you.
Uh-oh.
No, don't worry about it. It's nothing crazy.
Okay.
What was your favorite toy as a child?
Oh, gosh. My hobby horse.
Your hobby horse?
My hobby horse was in front of the television, and I was constantly nonstop riding that hobby horse. I mean, I don't know how long. I mean, for hours at a day. In fact, there was one point where I wanted my hobby horse to be bigger, like a big horse. So
Yeah.
I put my hobby horse on top of the dining room table and got on it and rode my hobby horse back and forth and back. It was one of these horses where it was plastic. I think it was either wood or plastic, and it had these springs that were attached to this frame, and you got on it. You went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Wait a second. Was that hobby horse the one that you still had when we were kids? We went to Bubby and Zadie's and would play with?
I'm trying to.
There was a hobby horse when we were kids. We would go to Bubby and Zadie's.
Was it, as I described, was it a brown horse that was on a frame with springs?
Yes. And that must have been it.
I thought I broke that. That might.
Maybe they got a second one. Maybe they got a second one.
Not my hobby horse. It might have been the one that my parents bought for my sister's little girl.
Oh,
she spent a lot of my sister was unfortunately was a divorced mother, and she had to work full time. And my mother, her little girl spent a lot of time at my parents' house. My mother took care of her little girl while she was at work.
Yeah, I remember going to Bubby and Zadie's. It was always nice. I always liked it.
So that might have been the, but yeah, for my hobby.
That's funny.
Horse.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So what, you were watching like Howdy Doody or something?
I watched Howdy Doody. I watched Westerns. In fact, I was into Westerns, and my parents, I remember there was this one Halloween where I wanted to be a cowgirl for, it was kindergarten, I wanted to be a cowgirl for Halloween.
Yeah.
My parents bought me a cowgirl's hat and a whole thing, the vest, the skirt, the guns and the gun holster and the boots. Man, I had the whole kit and caboodle.
That's awesome. That is awesome. We're slowly running out of time, but I have another question for you. What types of people have you no respect for?
Obnoxious teachers and principals that are trying to pull that they aren't really, how can I say it? They really are not doing their job. They're just trying to lord it over you. They don't know.
What do you mean, lord it over you?
They don't, in other words, they don't know beans about what they're doing, but they're just trying to pull like a power play on you, like the
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Like, you're not trying to
overly-
actually be productive. You're just trying to be like domineering and controlling, and you have no
Yes.
respect for me or the passion of children's education. You're just on a power trip.
Right.
So anybody on a
Mhm.
power trip, yeah, no, I totally get
I
that.
had no,
I
I have
totally
no
get that.
respect for those people. Yeah.
So, what conspiracy theory do you believe is 100% true?
The Kennedy assassination.
So, what's your conspiracy theory?
Well, I remember when it happened,
Yeah.
and the news media there was the Warren Report. The Warren Report insisted that Lee Harvey Oswald acted totally on his own,
Yeah.
and that Jack Ruby acted totally on his own out of compassion for the Kennedy family. And there was a prosecuting attorney, I think he was from Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, Georgia or
Mhm.
Alabama, it was from Georgia, named Jim Garrison.
Okay.
He did a whole television presentation where he did his own investigation. And he showed during that investigation all this evidence about how Oswald and Ruby were connected, and there was some sort of underground organized crime figure
Hmm.
I think in Georgia, that was also connected to the whole thing. And he also brought out, I remember one of the points that he brought out was, has it ever occurred to anybody how many people who knew things about the Kennedy assassination have mysteriously died?
Interesting.
Lee Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby killed him. Jack Ruby, quote unquote, died in prison of pneumonia.
Oh.
Remember that? And Jim Garrison eventually had enough evidence that he got a grand jury conviction against this organized crime figure in Georgia as being part of the conspiracy.
Oh, wow.
And there was the famous female journalist Dorothy Kilgallen, who she investigated the Kennedy assassination, and she was just about to make some very pertinent information public,
Hmm.
and she mysteriously died
Oh,
right
wow.
before she was going to go public with her investigation.
So, why do you think he got shot?
I was reading a book that came out many years later that was
Okay.
exploring different ideas. One was Castro.
Mm.
Also, there was combination Castro. Kennedy also was very big on going after organized crime.
Hmm.
I said Lee Harvey Oswald, even though at that time there was a travel restriction on going to Russia, Lee Harvey Oswald was able to go back and forth between the
Yeah.
United States and Russia very, very freely.
I've heard about like Russia. I heard a thing where it's like Russia got Lee Harvey Oswald to kill the Kennedy, kill Kennedy, but if they discovered it or if the media found out, it would force a nuclear war at the time, and they didn't want to have a nuclear war. That's the theory that I heard.
That's the first time I've heard of that theory. But Lee Harvey Oswald was seen in Jack Ruby's nightclub the night before the assassination, and he and Jack Ruby were talking.
Mm.
Also, one of the things that Jim Garrison brings out, Jim Garrison showed footage of Lee Harvey Oswald being transferred from the jail to the federal authorities.
Mhm.
and there was a big crowd there. Now, and they said if you look at Lee Harvey Oswald's eyes as they're bringing him out, he looks right at Jack Ruby
Like
as
he knows
soon
what's
as they
going
bring
on.
him out. Also, when they arrested Lee Harvey Oswald, the
Yeah.
first thing he said when they arrested him was, "I was a
Patsy.
patsy. I was a patsy." Yeah.
Yep.
And also the police officer, I remember my mother crying about the poor innocent police officer that he also killed. Evidently, that police officer, it came out later, was part of the group. He was supposed to drive Lee Harvey Oswald to the airport. And well, that was the plan.
Yeah.
But instead, he was driving him somewhere else. And when
Wow.
Lee Harvey Oswald realized that he had been set up,
He killed him.
and he pulled out his gun and shot the police officer.
All right. So I have one more question. What is the word of the day?
What? Any
What?
word of the day?
What is the word of the day?
I don't know. What is the word of the day? I didn't even know there was a word of the day.
Eva, tell me. You tell me. What is the word of the day?
Word of the day is dress. And I finally found a dress for your brother's wedding.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And that's a whole story in itself.
We'll talk about that next time. We'll talk about that next time.
Picking out dresses for weddings. Yes.
Weddings. All right, Eva. I love you. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
You too. Have a great Shabbos, honey. Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I know you would like it, and my mother would too.